Hey there, welcome to the REI Conversion Podcast, where each episode we discuss strategies and digital tools to help you launch, automate, and scale your real estate investing business. Learn how to run your investing business remotely, find out ways to automate your business to better utilize your time, and learn what other successful investors are implementing so you can get to the next step closer to your investing goals. And I'm your host and founder of REI Conversion, Jesse Kwong. Hey, how's it going? This is Jesse here from the REI Conversion Podcast. I have a very special guest with us today. His name is Paul Brewer. You may have seen him around in a lot of the land investing community. He's always helping others get started. Now, one of the really cool things about Paul is that he is still sort of fresh to land investing. He's only done this for around the 1 year mark. But I wanted to bring him in on this episode and sort of share what he's learned, because a lot of the lessons he's learned are really fresh. And I think this will be really helpful for a lot of you guys who are sort of getting started or maybe need a perspective change on certain things about land. Anyways, he's also a he's also an REI conversion website owner, as well as he's a user of Pebble, REI Pebble by REI Conversion. So, like all our episodes, this episode is brought to you by REI Conversion. And if you are looking for a tool to help you streamline your land investing when it comes to automating your mailers or helping you save time throughout each step of land investing, to generating docs, managing your team of VAs, communicating inside of there, and moving the properties through each stage of the pipeline for land investing, make sure you give REI Pebble a try. You can head over to pebblerei.com or go straight from reiconversion.com. Sign up for a free trial at the website, and you'll get a 2-week trial there. And one of us, also myself or somebody on our team, will reach out to you, help you, show you how quickly it is to get your first mailing out the door. Anyways, I'm going to leave it to Paul on this episode. I hope you enjoy it. Make sure you have a pen and paper ready to go, and enjoy the show. Cheers. Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm here with Paul Brewer today on the REI Conversion Podcast. Paul, how's it going?
Going good. Nice to be with you, Jesse.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Paul, I mean, we sort of ran into each other a while back. You're a REI Conversion site owner and a Pebble user as well. We actually had you recently on one of our Pebble mastermind, and today I wanted to pull you in and talk more about what you've done in really the last year. And would you say you sort of really picked up land investing in the last year?
Heard about it about 18, 20 months ago, and then really actually dove in January of this year.
Awesome. Okay, so before I even jump into anything, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you got into land investing?
So again, like I said, about a year ago is when I actually jumped in. My day job is a firefighter. Been doing that for 18 years. And about 17 years ago, I ended up getting married, and my father-in-law has been a serial entrepreneur himself. So we've always talked about running a home-based business that we could do as a family together, but nothing ever quite matched up with our skill sets. So eventually I heard about land investing, thought I'd give it a shot. But I heard about this direct mail thing that goes along with land investing, and I'm like, nope, I'm out. So that was actually about 2 years ago. And then I ended up hearing a bunch of podcasts, like all back to back one day. And that's how I said, okay, maybe I should give this land investing a try. Went into a little bit of training, and the rest is history.
That's awesome. Now, you mentioned a little bit of training. Why don't you share a little bit about where you got your training from for land investing?
Yeah, so depending on where you want to go, there's a number of different people who offer training in the space of land investing. They all offer the same or slightly tweaked models. I ended up resonating the most with Mark Podolsky and the Land Geek community. So I ended up going to their flight school, and that's what really got me kind of on track. But the 3 months from flight school to January of this year, I was still struggling to get any traction, hadn't sold anything, was having a rough time. So I ended up actually going into some mentorship coaching, one-on-one coaching with them. And from when I started that, they got me on track, and everything has kind of been that hockey stick right up. So um,
That's,
for anybody just for anybody who's looking to get into land investing, some kind of mentorship is key.
yeah, you know what? So you're. I typically bring on land investors who have a few years under the belt, and you're the second guest I've had on here. Actually, the other one being Megan, which is a show probably a couple shows before this one, or maybe previously. I don't know when we're exactly going to launch it, but it's the one with Megan, and both you guys are sort of in that year range, and I wanted to bring you guys on here to sort of really share your story and what you did within that year to kind of get to where you are, because I speak to a lot of new land investors, and I'm definitely not in the coaching or mentorship or education space of land. Even though I do have a podcast and we try to share as much here as possible, but I wanted to bring you on here to kind of share some of your experiences within the first year. It's still so fresh for you. There's so many lessons to be learned in that first year. A lot of mistakes that has happened across that first year, and it's. I think it's super important to kind of share those with especially people who are just getting started or are have gotten started not too long ago and want to sort of take it to that next step. And one of the common things I'm hearing a lot is sort of that one-on-one coaching or that mentorship. Um, a lot. I mean, when people are getting into the space of land investing, would you say it's probably a good step to go for the general education first, like you did at flight school, and then step into a one-on-one coaching, or should they jump right into one-on-one coaching right away?
That I think is going to really depend on your circumstances. Do you have a W 2 job that you're trying to leave and make this your career? Then, if that's the case, then absolutely you should do the training. And most of the land investors have an initial training, and then it jumps into a mentorship, and it kind of just flows together. So you got to kind of have one with the other.
Right.
So I highly recommend that you do that if this is your career. Me, on the other hand, I've kind of figured out that I've got 10 years left in my career, but I do want a side business to fall back on and to have in retirement. So you could, at that point, theoretically, just do the initial training and then do a lot of figuring out. There's a lot of stories of people who do this and make a very successful career of this in 3 years or so. Um, but to hockey stick it, like they say, and get somewhere in the first year, that one-on-one coaching, having someone who's done this for a while, kind of guide you up the mountain of land investing. That's definitely how you want to approach it.
Right, right. Okay, let's sort of focus in on your strategy, and then I'm going to bring it back to later, more more open ended, broad questions. You've been doing this for a little bit over a year now, or you're really focused for the last year, really.
Yep.
Can you share with us your strategy? And there was something that you talked about last time on our mastermind, but I'll sort of let you share. How do you approach land investing? Is there something that you do a little bit different from everybody else, or what is your general strategy?
No, nothing any different. When it comes to this business, there's a recipe to follow, and it's the mailing and the marketing. So once you've identified where you want to work, and there's really two models of this business, right? There's the what they call the desert square, it's the smaller properties that you can buy and self close on, and then you offer up as owner financing for the everyday person who they can grab some land, right? That's pretty much
Yeah.
what I've been focusing on, and that's building a note portfolio that will carry me in retirement and fill in wherever money might be needed. And then there's the other side, which is you're buying the larger properties and possibly selling for cash and stuff like that. But you hold
Mhm.
those properties longer. So um, I focus on the smaller, the everyday properties that you buy at 25 cents on the dollar and you can sell to uh, just about anybody. So that's kind of what I've been
Right.
focusing on. The only thing different that
Um,
coaching helped with was getting me on track.
right. 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 Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think there's a little bit of a delay, but anyways, um,
Oh, no worries.
one of the things that you mentioned on the call was the fact that you stick to one county. You don't really hop around.
Yeah,
Can you explain that strategy to us, and how has that
yeah.
been like?
So it's actually been very nice. When you're getting into this business, there's a lot of information to try and digest and get squared away so that you kind of have an idea of what you're doing. So by sticking to one county, you focus everything there. So you learn. who the planning and zoning people are, who the assessor is, a recorder. You get on a first name basis. You learn all the little ins and outs of the county that help you sell the land within that county. I've been doing this for a year. I've been in one county, and exactly 14 days ago, I sent my first mailer out for the second county I think I might want to work in. So it's been well over a year, and I've been in this just one county, and it's been great. So that's I highly recommend you start there first with one county, learn it, learn the model, make sure you know how everything works, and then you can start branching out from there.
Now, so to follow up with that question is, how do you know which county to start off at, and what do you have to say to those people who say, "Well, what about there's competition in that county?"
Right. Yeah. So I picked probably one of the most competitive and land investor saturated counties that there is, and I have been doing absolutely fine. So the training I got said to go where all the land investors are, and that's exactly what I did. So I went and I picked the busiest county because I figured I could find land there, and worst case scenario, I could wholesale it to them. So I've been doing great, but I've been selling most of mine on notes to customers. So go where they are. The couple times I've attempted to do stuff in less populated counties, it hasn't gone as well. And I'm not just sure if
Oh,
that was me or if that was truth to the fact that go where all the other land investors are.
right. And then, so you mentioned that you're moving to a different county, or you're expanding to your second county now. You're considering it. How did you go about considering that county,
The county I'm in, it
or or,
snows
or
in
the
the
next
winter.
county that you want to work in?
Right. Yeah. So the county I'm in, it snows in the winter. So I figured I needed to find a county where it's sunny during the winter. So that was part of my reasoning. I'm having two opposite counties. So depending on the time of year, land might be easier sold in one versus the other. And then just your, this county kind of has to talk to you a little bit. You got to be kind of excited about selling that piece of land there because it's kind of hard when you get on the phone with someone. It's like, okay, I have no idea why you want to buy a piece of land in the middle of this desert. I don't know. So, the next county, I kind of, I had some success in there early. I bought some wholesale early on in my land investing career and had a breeze selling it there. So I figured I'd go back and try it again. And one, it's easy to get the information, easy to get the list. It's easy to get the information off of the county GIS, easy to record the deeds via Simplifile. So there's a bunch of checks that you have to make. I'm not going to go to some place that I can't record a deed by Simplifile right now because
Mhm.
Simplifile is too easy and I don't want to mail a deed in and try and figure it out. So those are just some of my checks and they all lined up for this other county that I'm starting in, and we'll see how things go.
Right, right. You mentioned a couple of things earlier, to be familiar with in a specific county. So, is there sort of a checklist of items you can say to our listeners? All right, if you're going to be focusing on one county, get a pen and paper out. These are the type of things you need to familiarize yourself. These are the people that you need to familiarize yourself with. What would those be, and who would those be?
All right. Number one, how easy is it to get records? Can you look up deeds so that you can verify chain of title easily? That's one thing. So that would be the recorder's office. Give them a call, hop on their website. The assessor and the planning and zoning, give them a call. How easy are they to reach to ask questions? Because people are going to ask you, hey, what can I do on this land? So you need to know, hey, you can do X, Y, and Z on your land. The other thing, is it a Simplifile county? Can you easily just file your deed with Simplifile and call it a day? And then the next thing is, how hard is it to get the list? Do you have to hire someone who's going to go line by line down some spreadsheet on the county website and pull names? Or can you use a data service like DataTree to pull the data off of there and make your mailing list that way? Um, I think that's where some new people kind of get tripped up is trying to find the list. I just answered a few questions earlier this week. People, hey, the county wants to charge me $500 for this list, and they sent it to me on a CD. My computer doesn't even have a CD-ROM. How do I get the information off of this thing? I'm
Yep.
like, oh man, people. Okay, one, you're always going to pay for a list, no matter what you do. Very rarely now, anyway, are you going to find a free list. So you either
Mm,
pay for it in a VA making it for you, or you pay for it from a data service. So um, I've had better luck with the data services than I have with VAs doing screen scraping or anything else. So I just pay for my data. That's one of the most important things. If your data is off and your mailing's off, there's no accepted offers, then there's no deals. Period. So Those are some of my checklists that I start, and I start there. Once I get that done, it's, hey, do I like the county? Can I sell land there? Do I connect at all with that type of land? So, and then at that point, you send a test mailer out. I usually send about 1,500 test mailers out just to see what I get back, and then I go from there.
Got you. Um, yeah, that's a detailed list. Thanks for sharing that. Now, if you've worked in a, let's say, if you worked in a new county, and what sort of what sort of things would say would raise red flags for you, and you would sort of no longer continue working in a county? Because there's a lot of time, people will come back to a county, and maybe they thought it was just bad luck or whatever it might be. What typically will sort of drive you away from a county?
Um, since I've only been in one county, I've only tested a couple others out. But some of the things
Yep.
that I could see driving people around are, is that county or area getting oversaturated? Is the buy price going up? If you were buying properties at $1,000 yesterday and now all of a sudden you can't get anything for under 1,500, maybe that's too expensive. However, if the buy price is going up, then the sell side should be going up. So it should correlate. That could be one
Mm,
thing. Or if your buyer's list, if you've got a buyer's list and they're just not interested in that and you are not having luck no matter where you market it, that might be a time to leave and try a different county. Or maybe it's time to reevaluate and tweak something in your marketing campaign. Um, that's about all I have. Like I said, it's hard. I've only been in the one county, so I haven't actually left the county yet.
yep. Yep. No, for sure. And then in terms of strategy, you talked about retirement and running your own business. So what is your long-term strategy when it comes to land? Are you going to continue to work in these sort of similar type of properties? Are you trying to have a huge portfolio of terms? What is it that you're seeing that you're going to go towards?
Yeah, it's funny that you have that as one of the questions. I've just been doing some kind of reevaluating over the business to see where I want to go. As I still have a W 2 job for quite a while, I'm actually debating whether I kind of switch my model a little bit. Still continue to do the smaller lots to gain the note portfolio, but let that go at a slower pace. And actually, I'm debating bringing on some capital partners to try and go after some larger properties. And
Yeah.
do the larger properties that tend to sell, on the cash side versus on the term side. So those are kind of my long-term goals and strategies. And that's another thing that when you're getting in this land business, you kind of want to think about. I've noticed as I've watched people over the last year who started maybe a year or two before me, and now they're starting to grow. I'm seeing them kind of hybrid their
Yeah.
businesses. They're doing some where it's taking on equity partners and doing those bigger deals, but they're still working in their one or two counties, continually doing those smaller deals to keep the portfolio building over time. So that's kind of my goal over the next few years to kind of see where that goes.
Great, and we'll make sure to get your information. I'm sure you want to work with other land investors, may want to work with you, and this is a great way to connect. So we'll make sure at the end of the
Appreciate
episode to
that.
share your contact there. Now, before we get to that, I want to sort of take this conversation into another direction. Um, like you said, you have a job. You're a fireman, is that correct?
I am, yeah.
So it's funny. I know a lot of pilots, firemen, and there was one more I was just saying the other day. Oh, and people in the medical industry or health
Yep.
industry. So um, you've got work going on, and this is one of the things that we talked about a little bit in our mastermind last time. But what's your process like working from work? Like, do you do land investing at work?
Yeah. So I do have some times where we have downtime at the firehouse where I can catch up on work and it's quiet and you can, kind of work on some of the processes and stuff like that. Um, I will admit it has worked out nicely a couple times when people wonder if I'm a scam or if this is real. I can go stand in front of the fire engine and send them a loom, say, "Hey, look, I'm a normal person with a normal job." That has played to my benefit a couple of times. Um, but when we're at the firehouse, we have our work, and usually, we have other work from 8 to 5. But in the evenings, when we have downtime, waiting for the bell to ring, we do have some extra time to get on the computer and type up some ads or shoot a quick video, a Loom video for training for a VA to kind of get them on some process going or something like that. Or that's usually when I end up, if I've sold the property, I'll do the contract and send it over or something like that. It's I used to do a lot more earlier on. I do a lot less now because I'm starting to actually get my team in place, so they do
Yeah.
everything. So I've kind of left myself right now. I'm the sales and contract guy. That's about it. And then I just kind of answer VA questions. So it does make it nice because I can, I've got my phone on me all the time, so I can, you know, answer a VA question really easy. But this business is very doable if you have another career due to the way that we put our VAs in place.
Yeah.
So it can be done for almost any career.
That's awesome. And is there sort of tasks you would save for home versus tasks that you'll do at work during your downtime then?
The tasks are typically shooting videos and stuff like that because firefighter. I can't plan the emergency, so when the bell drops, it's time to go. So I tried to record a couple of videos the other day because I was trying to get a VA on board for doing deal of the week, and I think I tried 4 or 5 times to record the video, and every single time I got interrupted, so I gave up, and I'll be doing that later today. So. Um, yeah, so video stuff like this, that's kind of hard to do when you're actually at work, but like the messaging and filling out contracts and quick stuff, emails, that's easily
Yeah.
done from just about anywhere. Because, um, like I was talking to you before, I was away for over a month, and I ran the entire business on an iPhone 11, except for having to go to the UPS store to print out a deed to get it notarized. So
Yeah.
that's the cool thing about this business. You can do it anywhere with a phone.
Yes, yes, and we had a chat about that on our mastermind. How you sort of ran everything from your phone for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Um, all right, so you mentioned you have a team in place. Then,
Mhm.
what roles are those team members taking right now?
Right. So to get this business running, especially if you're going to do it with another full-time job, a couple of key positions you're going to want to get into place really, really quickly. You're going to want to find a stellar intake manager, someone who can, or a acquisitions manager, if you will, someone who takes all those accepted offers and runs them through all the initial due diligence to get them going. That's a lot of time that I don't want to ever do again, talking to people who want to sell it. So I've got a great guy who's doing that for me right now. And then the next thing you want to do is find someone who can answer all of the Facebook, Craigslist, land flip, whatever messages. If you can get those two VAs in place, taking care of that load, that takes a ridiculous amount of time off your plate. At that point, you're just worried about some sales stuff, um, and then making sure that your team is in place. Now, I have half a dozen other VAs that do random things periodically for me, but those are the two primary ones that I have in place that have saved me a ton of time.
So let me ask you this: a lot of people are gonna be like, okay, well, Paul, where do I find these magical people from? Like, do I go on something like Upwork, or do I network and meet others who maybe have an acquisition manager that they can share? What would you sort of say is the best place to start looking? Because I think that is where a lot of people are coming into issues, is finding these people that can
Hmm.
actually do some of this stuff or have experience already doing this stuff.
Right. So there are a number of companies that are starting to get into the land game that are training people to do intake manager work. It's where I found mine. Upwork, you can do that. You can also hop into any of the Facebook groups that are for any of the land trainers or any of the land groups, and you can probably post a question there. I got mine from parcelreview.com. They're actively training intake managers. I believe there's a waiting list right now, but you can get your name on that list. Want to say there's a couple others. I'll have to look up the actual web URLs. Don't give the wrong ones. You can put them in your thing that people are looking for. There's, I think, one other that I know that
Yes,
does it. So you can easily
appreciate
find
that.
them. They're there. It's just with the intake manager, especially when you're starting out, it's good to do it a little bit yourself so you know. That way you can tell your intake manager, acquisition manager exactly how you want it done. Um, I got lucky. My guy was plug and play. He'd been doing it for a number of other land investors, so
Gotcha.
I got lucky there. But once you get that one in, that was half of it right there. Just taking care of the letter, that's half the work right there, and he's worth his weight in gold.
Yeah. And I think even networking and just meeting others. I know a lot of land investors are open
Mhm.
to sharing their team because perhaps their VA needs more
Yep.
hours or whatever it may be. Yeah, feel free to join our land investing group. That's land investors driving for growth group here, and a lot of the other land investing groups. I'm sure you'll find others. And recently I got in touch with the two, Anthony and Pete, who are running land VA for you and are very closely associated with the folks over at land geek and yourself. So that's another great resource. I think there are tons of sort of like you said, sort of bodies that are now starting training their teams of VAs on how to work the land investing business. So, tons of places to look.
Totally. Yep.
Start with the community, ask around, and check out some of the resources that we mentioned on here. Now, I'm going
Totally.
to wrap this up, and this was more of a open-ended conversation about how you approach land investing. As like I mentioned, that you're still within that year, around that year mark, and it's really impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't even get to share how many properties have you accomplished in this past year.
As of about an excuse me, as of about an hour ago, I just hit 52.
That's amazing. I think that's crazy.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that,
And
Paul. And
yeah,
it
thank you.
you're just a so it is very possible. I think a lot of people that are getting to the land, there's a lot of skepticism, and it's great to hear you guys are really smashing this. So,
Yeah.
anyways, coming back to my question, can you leave our listeners with, say, one or two pieces of advice from someone who wants to work and get into land, and do it full time, and are just starting out? What would you say those things would be?
Yeah. The first thing is know that this is a business and it does work. And being that it's a business, expect to put in a good amount of time early on to get your processes and team in place. Now, once you've spent that time and everything is in place, that is when things start to get easier. And you hear a lot of people say, they only spend 2, 5, 6, 10 hours a week on their business, right? Those guys have been doing it for 3 or 4 years now, and they have their team in place and everything like that. I have spent easily 20 to 40 hours a week for the first 6 months of this business putting things together. And a lot of it's trial and error, right? You don't know exactly what you're doing, which is totally cool and totally fine. The other awesome thing about land is there's really no such thing as a land emergency. That piece of dirt is not going anywhere, and nor are the people who want to sell or buy it. So um, you can afford to make a few mistakes and grow. It's totally cool and it totally works. And then the last main thing is just follow that recipe. Whoever you got your training from, depending, it doesn't matter what land trainer it was, whatever they say to do that, and don't listen to anybody else who does training. Focus on what your instructor is telling you to do so you can get that process up and going. Once that is fully up and going, you got your team in place and the machine is moving and you're just buying and selling on a regular process. That's when it's time to start potentially looking out at other ways of doing the land business, other areas to market, mail. Um, you got to avoid that shiny object syndrome. So, firefighter, we chase shiny objects. That's kind of our nature. That's what we do. So that was very hard for me, which is why I did nothing for the first 6 months. I bought a total of one property in 6 months. Once I finally got focused, that's when the sales actually started happening. So um, there's so many things out there. Find the right systems, the right processes, and the 3 or 4 key positions you need in your business to get going. Let that marinate, let that grow, and then you'll be very surprised. All of a sudden, things just will take off for you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Paul. So, Paul,
Yeah.
are you? So, yes, you are sort of looking for other land investors to work with. But are you doing any sort of mentorship or coaching yourself?
Yeah, not really. If you have a question, you guys can hit me up anywhere. I'm in the land group Facebook. I'll add my email here if you guys want to hit me up there or Facebook Messenger. I'm more than happy to hop on the phone and chat. In fact, I just chatted with a couple who are getting started this morning. They're just asking some questions. So I'll share with you what I know. I mean, the land investment business, there's so much land to buy, not enough of us to buy it, not enough money to buy it with. So with a high tide, all ships rise. Um, I'm pretty open. You ask a question, I'll tell you right where I'm mailing, right where I'm marketing, and how much I'm buying it for. So
That's awesome, Paul. Paul, what's the best way? Do you have an email contact? Should I just leave in the show notes, or do you want to say it on the show right now?
you can do support at legacylandsusa.com, or you can find me on Facebook under just my name, Paul Brewer.
Awesome. I just wrote that down. Well, Paul, it's a pleasure to have you on here. It's super inspiring to hear what you've accomplished and the things that you're building for yourself, even with a full time job. You're mentioning that you're planning for retirement, and it's amazing to see what you've done, and it's great to have you within our community. Great to see what you're doing with our systems as well. We're excited to hear back from you and perhaps have you on the show again and get an update from you. Um, Paul, thanks very
Perfect.
much for coming on to the REI Conversion podcast.
You are very welcome. Thank you guys, and we'll talk to you later.
All right. Cheers. Thanks, Paul. Before you stop this podcast or head to the next episode, I want to personally thank you for listening to this episode of the REI Conversion Podcast. If you found this helpful, we'd greatly appreciate an awesome review and rating on whichever platform you're listening to this on. And if you have 2 minutes and wanted to step it up even more and help others, feel free to share this in other Facebook groups or pages or any communities, giving others a heads up of the REI Conversion Podcast or this specific episode that may help them on their investing journey. Once again, thanks very much for listening and catch you on our next episode.